In this video, I'm going to review the Look 765 gravel bike. If you've subscribed to my channel for a while, you'll know that several years ago, I reviewed the Optimum 765, which was an endurance road bike one of the best road frames that I've ever ridden. Now, I don't road ride anymore. I only do gravel and mountain biking. And so I was really stoked to get a demo of this bike. And I've been riding it for a few months, and it is phenomenal. Now, this is a bike that's not geared for bike packing or, multi-day trips. You're not going to find bosses for racks and things like that. Now, you do have a lot of water bottle options that I'll show on this frame, and it's really well equipped for doing, races, long races, that kind of thing. You can put 3 water bottles inside the frame of this bike, which is really cool. I've only been running it with 2, but we'll show that coming up in a minute. This bike is really designed to go fast. I mean, Look is a road racing company steeped in tradition. They make some of the best carbon road frames out there, and this bike is no exception. It's a full carbon frame, carbon fork, and I think the 3 words that I would use to describe this frame are light, stiff, and stable. This particular frame is not super compliant. It's not quite as compliant as my personal gravel bike, which is a 9er RLT9 RDO. So it's not quite as comfortable, but it is fast. When you stand and get on the pedals and go hard on this bike, this thing goes. Now, don't get me wrong, it is not an uncomfortable gravel bike by any means. It is compliant enough to take the edge off of bumps, but yet it's still light and fast. It's also very, very stable. It will hold its line in a corner better than any gravel bike that I've ridden, which is going to be especially helpful for those of you who do mountainous gravel rides where you're coming down fast gravel roads and you need a lot of stability in the corners. This bike, the geometry is just phenomenal. So let me just kind of show the bike up close. I'll show some of the features. I'll show that ability to put 3 water bottles in the triangle. You'll notice that the top tube on this bike does not slant as some other gravel bikes. For example, my 9er RLT9 has a much more slanting top tube, but this allows for you to put 3 water bottles. So what you can do is you can drop this water bottle down lower and you can put another one right here. So you'll see there are 2 bosses here for a water bottle. And again, that allows you to run a 3rd water bottle inside the triangle. Now, you probably would have to run a side mount water bottle cage, especially if you wanted to run a taller water bottle. And let me show you what I mean. So I can put this water bottle right here, and to get this out, this is a shorter water bottle, has a broken top. Don't look at that. So, but this is a shorter water bottle. I could get it out, but I would run a side mount water bottle if I were going to put a 3rd water bottle. But I think that's really cool that they do that, and there are bosses underneath the down tube, so you could run a 4th. So you could carry 4 water bottles on this frame. As with most gravel bikes today, you do have the option of putting a bento box on the top tube. Cable routing on this frame is very clean, so both the brake and the shifter cable stay inside the frame all the way to the back. So that's where your rear shifter cable comes out, and then the rear brake cable comes out inside the left chainstay. And the front brake cable goes inside the top of the fork and then comes out the bottom down here. So again, very, very clean setup. There are, of course, ports to run a front derailleur cable and also a dropper post. You can get this bike in different color options and different group sets. This particular one is a matte black, and it's got Campy Ekar 13 speed, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So the matte black, I like. It's a little bit harder to clean if you got a lot of dust on it, and it has been incredibly dry in my region. We haven't had rain in over a month, which is really rare, and I've had a lot of dust. I just hosed this thing off before the review because it was so dusty, but I like the subtle graphics. So the Optimum 765 that I had a few years ago to review, that one had pretty bold graphics. These are really subtle, which is really cool. I mean, you can honestly barely even see the Look logo on there. Look has a lot of details in their frame that are second to none. Now, I will say one of my gripes is the fact that this frame has a mix of Torx bolts and Allen bolts. I don't like Torx. For example, I was out on a ride, the first ride, I had to make an adjustment to the seat post. I realized my multi-tool that I had with me did not have a Torx bolt tool, and I couldn't adjust the seat. So I don't know, I just don't like Torx, but that's probably my only gripe. So let's go over some of the components on this bike. I don't want to go too heavy in the components because I want to focus more on the frame, since you can get this in different component groups. The Look saddle I felt was pretty comfortable. Not my favorite saddle, but not too bad. It's got a nice shape, and I always like a saddle with an anatomical cutout. The seat post, pretty standard carbon seat post. This bike is light. I'll put the weight on the screen without the pedals, but this bike is very light. The stem for me was too long. So I'm 5 feet 8 inches tall, and I'll put centimeters on the screen, I have to look it up. And I typically ride about a 53 to 54. This being a medium, I felt it should come with a shorter stem. It came with 100. I run a 90 on my gravel bike, so I was a little stretched out on this bike. It felt bigger, and I think it's mainly because of the stem. So I just want to throw that out there in case you're interested in this bike for sizing. Bars have somewhat of a flare, not too much. A lot of people don't like flares, and there is a very, very slight flare to this bar, so it's pretty neutral. I like a bit wider flare on a gravel bike, but it's total personal preference. This particular bike came with Hutchinson tires, and I really like these tires. They have low rolling resistance. They are stable. These came with tubes. Because it was a demo bike, I did not swap them out for tubeless. That would have added some compliance to the bike. I run all of my personal tires tubeless, but again, because it was a demo, I didn't do that. But I really like the tires. It comes with Fulcrum alloy wheels, decent wheel set, didn't have any issues with the wheel set. Now let's talk about the group set, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because by now I will have uploaded my review of Campanola Ekar, which is a 13-speed gravel group set. The only company right now making a 13-speed cassette. It is a 1x, as I mentioned in that review of Ekar, it's the first 1x system that I would run as far as the gearing, because you don't have a big jump between gears down here when you're going faster. When you get into the climbs and you need a lower gear, you do have more of a jump as you do with 1x systems. But typically I don't like 1x systems, but this one I did as far as the gearing. Now, as I mentioned in that review, I did not like the shifting mechanism for shifting really into an easier or harder gear, because the inner lever is opposite of Shimano, because that inner lever will go to an easier gear, whereas Shimano goes to harder. And then I did not like how my thumb had to kind of rock back to shift here, and then when you're down in the drops to get your thumb up to shift. I'm not going to go too much more into that because you can go back and watch that video that I made reviewing the group set, but I'm not a huge fan of it. It's something that I feel like I could get used to if I kept riding it. And it took me about a week to really get used to shifting. Once I did, I stopped misshifting. But today was my first day getting back on my personal gravel bike with Shimano GRX, and it was a very welcome feeling getting back on Shimano. But the good thing about this is the 13 speed. It's just excellent gear choice. Now the brakes are okay. They're made by Magura, I believe. They're not made by Campanola, but they have a nice modulation. They don't have quite the grab that Shimano has. The pad clearance is a little tight for my taste. It took me a while to really get these centered, and even still I had some rubbing when I was riding. Not too bad, but you know, they have a decent feel. They're a bit mushy feeling, especially for the rear at times, but it's not a huge deal. I'm pretty opinionated when it comes to brakes. I know what I like, but you know, the main thing for the group set for me is just the way that you shift. Just not a huge fan of it, but that's my opinion. This 765 gravel bike is exactly what you would expect from a company who makes some of the best road frames in the world. I really like this bike. This is a great riding frame. As I mentioned, it's not for bike packing. You're not going to find the ability to put a rack on it, but most of us just go out for fast rides, slow rides, whatever. I mean, this is a really nice bike. It's nice that you have options, nice that you can get Shimano. If you're a campy fan, you have the option of getting campy. It's matter of personal opinion, taste, whatever. But I really like the way this bike rides. Light, stable, and fast. So let us know in the comments if you've ridden one of these 765 gravel bikes. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me about campy? Do you disagree? I'm really curious to know. And that'll wrap it up for this video. Catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.